Hey, you're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Mark Lamont Hill. It was the kind of awful sports moment you never forget. Kevin Ware, a sophomore guard for Louisviile, was playing in a game against Duke Sunday for entry into the Final Four when he broke his lower right leg, in two places as he contested a three-point shot. Ware jumped to try and block a shot, and his leg bent at practically a right angle when he landed. The bone was coming through his skin. The frightening break was captured on national television. CBS Now only showed the replay twice, and the next 10 minutes of coverage consisted of showing the grieving players and even a crying coach Rick Pitino. Ware left the court on a stretcher and had surgery late Sunday night. School officials said that the leg was broken in two places, but it was reset and a rod was inserted into his right tibia. Doctors say that the surgery in such cases is usually successful and Ware should return to health. Joining me to discuss this is Chris Greenberg, who's a HuffPost sports editor, and Donald Wine, who's a lawyer and sports fanatic. Chris, we saw it. It was shocking. I mean, it was really one of the toughest injuries to witness I've seen in sports in the last 20 years. And that's including football injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jim Nantz during the broadcast said it was the worst basketball injury he can ever remember seeing. And I think it goes a step beyond that, like you said. I mean, this was as hard to watch as anything that we've seen in football, which obviously has a much higher risk of injury. And I think a lot of people did think of the Joe Theismann injury, his famous knee injury, and Joe actually tweeted about it and sent his thoughts and said they were with Kevin. So I do think this was right up there with that famous injury as far as the impact it had on people who saw it.
Yeah, and Theismann had pads on. I mean, it's like even when a guy in football gets hit, you think, okay, he's protected, and we know it's not entirely true, but at least you have a sense of comfort that these are guys who take hits for a living and have protection. This kid was just laying there. I think for me, it was also the gruesomeness of it. Donald, do you think that they did a decent job at CBS of not showing it too many times? I mean, in this day and age of guts and gore, they could have shown it 50 times. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, watching the game live, obviously, I was watching with some Duke friends that, I think 2 times was enough. 1 time was enough. When you see it live, we immediately knew that something bad was going on. And when they showed the replay, we knew just exactly how bad it was. I think they did the right thing by not showing it too many times because that's something you never want to see. I mean, we're talking about kids playing a game in front of millions, and the fact that happened it's still shocking. It doesn't really happen in basketball really ever. It's something that happens in football. You may see it in soccer, but to see that for the next half hour of the game, even as a Duke fan, all we were thinking about was how bad we felt for that kid that happened, and that we wished him a speedy recovery.
How does this injury happen? I mean, again, I've played basketball my entire life. I've seen basketball more times than I can imagine. I've never seen an injury like this. I mean, is this really just a freak accident? How does somebody step into a play like that and end up, with a leg broken in 3 places? It doesn't even seem like a basketball injury to me.
It really isn't, and I think something that a theory that has come up is the theory about these elevated courts that they're now using in these big arenas in NCAA tournament. The fact that he was trying to stop suddenly or land at a point where he wouldn't completely go off the court, which sometimes on contested threes, you would see a guy rush past the player and go off the court because it's all on the same level. But because it's 3 feet off the ground, he may have tried to stop himself at a sudden angle so that he wouldn't fall off the court completely. And just the law of physics just took over and produced that. I really don't understand how that can happen. It's probably the first time we've ever seen it, but that is a theory that I've seen being put forward.
Chris, it was interesting to see the response of the players, and it was a little bit different even than pro players. I mean, these kids were so invested in the well-being of him more so than the game. They started to cry. I mean, they saw the injury, they cared about their teammate, but it wasn't just Louisville players crying, it was Duke players crying. I saw Mike Krzyzewski over there wincing and rubbing his eyes, wiping tears from his eyes. I heard him in a post-game also talking about how his heart went out to this kid. I mean, the response of the entire kind of athletic community, both in the game and also even in the internet, was sort of powerful.
You're totally right. I think the emotional reactions of those Louisville players weeping. Some of them fell to the ground themselves. Was extremely powerful. And, you know, CBS made the decision not to keep showing the replay, which, you know, I think was the correct decision at the time.
Would that have been a different decision if you were a pro? Would that have been a different decision if you were a pro?
You know, I think that it might have played a factor. You know, here as an amateur, someone who's not being paid, it's possible that was a factor. I think also, you know, the graphic nature of the injury, the fact that it was a basketball player. This is a kid in shorts. He's much more exposed than a football player who usually has a lot more gear on. The injuries are a bit more obscured by the equipment, and you know, it's possible that, you know, his amateur status had a role. But I think the emotions of the teammates conveyed the severity of the moment in a way that was just as powerful and gripping and also equally hard to watch. I mean, you felt for not only for Ware, but for these kids who were so upset by what had just happened to one of their close friends and teammates. And I think that might have been different if they were pros. I mean, these kids live together, they go to class together, they practice together, they're close-knit in a way that, you know, probably isn't the same as it is on the pro level. And that came across really poignantly in the reactions of these kids.
It was really encouraging, though, to know that, one, he got successful surgery last night, and that it seems as if he will recover fully. Do you buy it, or is this just good news coming from press department so we don't panic?
Well, I think, you know, at this point, it's obviously too early to say. The first and you know, most important step is that the reports are the surgery went well. You know, after the game, Rick Pitino did mention Michael Bush, a Louisville football player who suffered a very serious leg injury, and he also
basically the same injury. It was basically Michael Bush's injury was basically the same, and he went on a very, very, very successful career.
Exactly.
You know, in Oakland and Chicago. I mean, he went on to be an NFL player despite that injury. I'm not sure if this kid had NBA prospects anyway, just yet. We just don't know. I mean, he was pretty young in the program.
Exactly.
He was a
I mean,
player.
He's a sophomore, and I think, you know, time will tell, you know, as far as his health goes. And I think, you know, we can only hope, and everyone, you know, is obviously rallying behind him that he can have a successful recovery and have the chance to show that maybe he could go on to continue his career.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I found perhaps most inspirational about this whole thing, one was that the kid continued to say, while in pain and even while being carted off on a stretcher, don't worry about me, I'll be fine, just go on to win the game. I mean, that's almost straight out of a movie. And I'll tell you, I've been around a lot of sports injuries, and most kids, most professional athletes, when they're in that much pain or even less pain than that, aren't worried about the game. You know, they're like, get me to a doctor, give me some meds, give me some painkillers. He was actually caring about the game and his teammates. I mean, that's kind of heartwarming at a moment where we think that athletes are these self-centered, kind of, you know, self-absorbed people. You know, it's sort of exciting to see that.
Definitely. And I think, I mean, it is astounding that in that moment, you know, given the severe pain he was in, that he still had the wherewithal and the thought to tell his teammates to go out and win the game, and that's where his thoughts were at that time, I think.
It's pretty impressive. Donald, do you think that do you think it mattered? Do you think that him doing that affected the outcome of the game?
I mean, it affected the game in the fact that the Louisville players responded and played a tremendous set of like 15 minutes where they just dominated. And I think they were rallying around their player. You know, Duke couldn't match it. And, you know, I think that was the difference of the game, is that they had something more to play for. I won't say that the injury is something that is, you know, something that you use as a rallying cry, but I think they wanted to win for their fallen player. And I think that, you know, that helped them recover and say, hey, look, we got to get Atlanta. You know, Rick Pitino pointed out that Ware is from Atlanta. So they were, you know, their rallying cry was, let's bring our kid home and let's get him to the Final Four. And I think they responded well in given those circumstances.
Yeah, and I really think this shows that, once again, the class and the talent of the Duke program, that they were willing to let Louisville beat them in order to honor this kid's memory. Go Duke. Guys, Louisville's going to go forward now. I'm a big Duke fan. I'm just teasing, Donald. But moving forward now, they have another matchup. You know, how does this play out? How does the Final Four play out for you guys?
I think it's going to be pretty close. I think it's going to be eventually a Louisville, Michigan final.
No Syracuse. No Syracuse in the mix for you guys. How about?
No Syracuse. I think that Michigan, I'm a big Michigan fan. I grew up in Michigan. I grew up a Michigan fan. And I think that for some reason they have responded to all doubters this postseason. Everyone thought they didn't have enough inside strength. Mitch McGary has stepped up big time. They didn't think Trey Burke could handle the pressure of being the man, and he has done that and more. So I think it's going to be a great Final Four no matter what. Wichita State has done tremendous in getting to this point. I'm not sure. I can't really count them out, but I think Louisville is a stronger team of the two. And on Syracuse's side, Syracuse is a team that's been kind of under the radar all season. They were in the top 10, and then people forgot about them. And come tournament time, the chips fell in the right places, and they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Chris, I'll give you the last word. I mean, now that Duke has had the grace and dignity to bow out, I'm not sure that I care about the tournament anymore, but I suspect Louisville's going to pull this thing out. Do you see Louisville winning the whole thing?
Well, I think that, they have the easiest matchup, relatively speaking. Obviously, Wichita State is no pushover, but I think they'd probably rather face them and then deal with the winner of Syracuse, Michigan.
I think everybody would rather play Wichita State at this point in the tournament. But I want you guys to hang in there. I got two more quick stories I want to talk to you about before I let you go. A lot of sports stuff happening today, obviously, because it's baseball opening day. And the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox will honor the community of Newtown and the memory of those killed in the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School when the teams play today, opening day, at Yankee Stadium. Pre-game ceremonies include a joint honor guard of Newtown police and firefighters, plus a moment of silence at which time a list of the victims' names will be recognized on the center field scoreboard. Yankees managing general partner Hal Steinbrenner said in a statement, "On opening day, we will reflect upon more important things and play the game to honor the community of Newtown. Since the day of the tragedy, our hearts and thoughts have been with those who were affected." Chris, this is a pretty classy act by the New York Yankees organization, is it not?
Definitely. I think, the community in Connecticut is, definitely in the hearts and on the minds of a lot of people in the New York metropolitan area. And this is, a gesture that I think is befitting with what we like to think about of baseball as the American pastime and doing this sort of community outreach.
No, I think it's a beautiful thing. I wish the Yankees had all good news like this, but they still have a big A-Rod problem on their hands we're going to have to talk about as well. The New York Times reported this weekend that the Yankees have big problems, or at least one big expensive problem this opening day. His name is Alex Rodriguez, a star third baseman who was supposed to bring championships, records, and fans to the ballpark, but now he's just injured. 5 years into his contract, the financial commitment hangs over the heads of Yankee management, affecting virtually every decision they want to make. As the Yankees come into the 2013 season on Monday, they come without the injured A-Rod. The team still owes him, get this, $114 million. That's what's left on the contract through the end of 2017 when he will be at the spry young age of 42. Hopes that he'd be breaking home run records at 42? Nope, not going to happen. Instead, he's injured, he's old, and all of their hopes for a successful run with A-Rod have pretty much been dashed. Anyway, joining me to discuss this once again is Chris Greenberg. He's a HuffPost sports editor, and Donald Wine. He's a lawyer, sports fanatic, and I hope not a Yankee fan. Donald,
nope.
A-Rod, is this maybe the most failed experiment in big contract baseball history?
I wouldn't say it's the most failed experiment because, the Yankees are prone for doing this. They like to overpay for players who are going to put, people in seats, put jersey sales, in the register. And, A-Rod filled that role for a long time with them when they traded for him from the Rangers. And I think that they wanted to make a statement by signing him to that big $275 million contract, if I'm not mistaken, about 5 years ago. They thought he was going to be, at that time we had Barry Bonds, who was performing at 42. We had Clemens performing at 40. We had Julio Franco performing at 50. So
by
you were thinking
you
that
mean enhanced performing.
Enhanced performance is what we found out to be. But I think they were planning on him being at a very elite level for a very long time. And that just is the risk of signing people with these big contracts.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely a huge risk. And the problem is it's not like football where you can just cut the guy. But is there another move they can make, Chris? Is there something that can be done from the Yankees' perspective to make this A-Rod thing at least end a little bit better than it's on pathway to end?
I mean, as far as his contract, I don't think there's too much that they can do. I don't see too many teams lining up to take that off their hands. And like you said, it's not football. They're not just going to cut him and take that money off the books. You know, with the Yankees, their general historical answer to problems like this is just to reach a little bit deeper into the pocket and, you know, bring in a younger, newer model. You know, there seems to be a drive, a really serious drive to get under the luxury tax. So they might not try that this time around, but that's always out there for them.
The good news for me as a Phillies fan, and the Yankees beat us in the 98 World Series, 99, was it 99 World Series, I guess. I'm sorry, the 09 World Series. We won the 08 World Series. Since then, I've hated the Yankees even more. The good news for them is that after signing A-Rod and him being such a phenomenal disaster, they haven't had the money to go around poaching every other team to the same extent that they always have. How badly has the A-Rod contract made their free agent moves?
Well, you know, I think that it's a combination of obviously the exorbitant value of that deal and this desire to get under the tax if possible. I mean, they're the team actually that went out and is taking bad contracts like a Vernon Wells off other people's hands at this point. And, you know, they're trying to find, you know, guys like that to fill the gaps, and it's been a lot of veteran players. You know, I don't think that it's going to be too easy for them to sign young guys to those sorts of big deals, you know, going forward in poaching like they historically have.
Yeah, I'm sure teams like the Nationals and other teams that have really good young talent, you know, before they were like the farm team for the Yankees, right? Other teams would develop young talent, and then the Yankees would get them when they were ready to mature, and they'd take them to World Series. It doesn't look like they can do it anymore, so I'm sure teams like the Nationals and the Marlins are going to breathe a little easier, knowing that the Yankees aren't the bullies on the block anymore. Anyway, it's an opening day. I won't ask for your baseball predictions right now because I know we're all on the same page here. We're looking at a Phillies-Rangers World Series in October. Is that fair to say? Can I get a thumbs up?
Astros are in first place.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They have a whopping lead, too. So far, they're wire to wire. Were they 1-0?
Yep.
Yeah, I like the Rangers to win that series and win the rest of their games. I expect them to go about 161-1. Phillies will be undefeated. That's baseball. That's my prediction for baseball. Anyway, now that we've gotten the important stuff out of the way, up next, a former advisor to President Reagan attacks George W. Bush's policy.